Author of Playground is coming out with a prequel, and I just want to tell you my version of Playground because it wouldn't have been hard to give that story some substance. This is essentially a whacked out Willy Wonka. We're gonna name our main character Charlie. Our story would open on a hot summer day where Charlie is mowing the lawns of these pristine, identical houses within a suburb. Through the technology and an announcement, we know that this is set in the early 90s. Charlie looks in through the house's window and sees a boy around his similar age playing the newest game console. Charlie looks longingly at the gaming console, but finishes up his mowing and receives his money from the mother of the house. She remarks how Charlie's such a good boy and she wishes her son was more like him. We see Charlie ride home with a wad of cash in his pocket, and we slowly see the pristine neighborhood transition into more and more decrepit slums. Charlie's mother is a single mother, both of them living in poverty, but Charlie's been saving up to get himself a game system. Charlie's mom calls and says she'll be getting home late, so Charlie begins to make dinner and turns on the TV, where he sees an exclusive interview with a playground manufacturer. I'm gonna name her Agnes because I like this name. Miss Agnes talks about her time growing up during World War II and how, in her home country of Germany, all of the playgrounds and other places were destroyed. Talks about how special playgrounds are to a lot of children's upbringing, that ability to socialize, to have fun. And she talks about how sad she is to see that less and less kids are playing on the playgrounds she helped to design. She also makes a sharp comment about video games and how they're rotting children's brains, that whole spiel. However, she then announces that she is going to hold a contest, and she has partnered with one of the gaming console makers. She talks about how if you unscrew one of the panels in the console, you will find a serial number and a sticker that will either declare you a winner or not winner, with a phone number for you to call to receive your prize. When asked about the prize, Agnes says that it will be an experience of a lifetime, as well as cash. Then we have the Super Spark system. This is kind of like my ripoff of Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo. So for $500, you get cables, you get games, and it's a portable system. So as long as you can plug it into an outlet, you don't technically need a TV to play anything. And it has like a snazzy little controller. But Charlie is even more incensed to get this console, and when his mother comes home, she surprises him by saying she got a small bonus at work. She said that they're almost there to getting the console he wants, and that she even saw one at a discounted price at the pawn shop. Charlie immediately runs upstairs to show all the money he's been making from mowing lawns and doing odd jobs around town, and they both run to the pawn shop to get the console. They learn from the store owner that the kid's console came scratched and he had a hissy fit, so the mom just brought it here. Charlie says he doesn't care if it's scuffed up, he wants it. And when he gets home, of course, he opens it to find that he is one of the lucky winners. He tells his mom about all of this, and she calls the number. The next day, men in black suits come, and they sit down with Charlie and his mother. They have Charlie's mother sign form after form after form after form. It takes hours on end. When done, they give them a lump sum of money and tell them that they will be sending their tickets in the mail. Charlie and his mother are excited because this money could cover their rent for months. Cut to them being flown out to Agnes's house. They're on Agnes's private jet, and from the sky, Charlie can see all of the different playgrounds on her property. And Charlie's mother inquires about where exactly they are, to which one of Agnes's henchmen says she doesn't need to know, and that Miss Agnes likes to have her privacy kept private. When they land, Charlie sees that there are other families there. All the other kids are from a higher class than Charlie, one of the boys even having a handheld console. Charlie does end up becoming friends with one of the girls in the group, named Sally. Both bond over the fact that they have a favorite play equipment at the playground, to which the boy with the handheld device kind of scoffs and is like, "Oh, I thought you weren't one of the poors." Charlie changed the names of the two main kids and did a design for like the console itself. So this is our main character, Zion. Lauryn Hill made me obsessed with this name as a child, so it's gonna stay. And this is Zion's mom. She is a nurse. Then we have Portia and Portia's father. And also, Portia is very much modeled after Carrie White. She's got red hair and freckles, and she's a little bit heavyset, and she is an absolute pumpkin, and I love her. Chloe's mother notices that all the parents are a lot more business types. A couple of them are complaining at the fact they have no service to make calls to the office. Agnes comes out to welcome them all. She takes them on a tour in her house, showing the first ever playground she pieced together as a little girl during the war, which handheld Game Boy is being a douchebag. And going on to more modern day, she talks about how she would observe what children really like to do, jumping, climbing, all that fun stuff. She then splits the parents and children up, to which Charlie's mother initially rejects and wants to stay with her child. Agnes is a bit taken aback by this, but she assures Charlie's mother that Charlie will be fine. Agnes's henchmen lead the parents away. Charlie and Sally stick together, even joining in when Agnes asks a question. They pipe up an answer. They eventually reach an elevator, to which Agnes tells them all to pile in, and she takes them down to her basement, where she's working on new equipment. And here we have our first fatal trap. Agnes asks the kids about metal slides, to which Sally pops up and says she never really liked them because during the summer she always got burned. Which Game Boy kid laughs at her and says that's what you get for playing on an old playground. Agnes decides that he is her volunteer. A spotlight illuminates a very tall slide. Agnes tells him to go on up. And him, being defiant, says sure, stuffing his device in his pocket and climbing to the top of the slide. But as he slides down, he begins to scream, and the kids watch in horror as pieces of him are left behind. Charlie then notices that there is a pit at the bottom of the slide, and he tries to get Agnes's attention, but she just smiles at him. Some of the other kids hoof it to the elevator, trying to get back up, but there is no button. Charlie and Sally begin to look around when Sally screams up there to see an observation window where all of their parents are staring down at them. Charlie's mother in particular has a chair in her hand as she is trying to break through the glass. Charlie tries to run to the Game Boy kid, but is stopped by Agnes. She grabs him and holds him as the child slips down, screaming in agony as his flesh now has been melted off and falls into the abyss below. First trap, obviously, is the glass slide. So the first child would be offered to wear a weathered, cheap plastic suit, which he denies because he's a pompous little rich. Mind you, the actual slide is a lot bigger. So towards the top of the slide, there is a small slit that is leaking sulfuric acid down the rest of the slide, something that can't really be seen because the slide is primarily made of a tinted glass. Now, the sulfuric acid is sitting down here in a pit. There is a pump that goes up to slide it down. However, at the bottom of the slide, within the pit, there is a solid platform. Now, if the child had taken and worn the weathered, cheap plastic suit, they would have been safe from the sulfuric acid as they slid down the slide and would have been able to get on the platform and hop to safety. To Charlie's mother trying to rally the other parents who are all in fits of hysteria. Game Boy's mother in particular is completely disbelieving that her son was just mutilated on a slide. Agnes's henchmen are at the door and they have guns in their hands. More lights in the complex come on and they see that there are 9 other structures in the little abyss Agnes has set up. Next is the monkey bars. Now, these rungs and the outer structures are completely stable. However, the rungs on the top are rusted and sharp and will collapse after 5 seconds. Purposefully, the monkey bars are semi-narrow. Essentially, if a child would just sit down on these 2 rungs, they could just pull themselves across casually and make it to safety on the other side. Next is the merry-go-round, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favorites. Essentially, the platform will lift and fall like a drop tower, and the speed of the spin will go a lot faster than a lot slower. Essentially, to survive this, you have to wrap your body around the bars. Now, the bars themselves are greased, so if a child is just standing and has their hands on it, they're going to fly off. But if they wrap their entire body around the center, they're able to survive. Right, this is probably the most evil one I have. So this is, of course, the titular seesaw. Mind you, the pits themselves are covered up until the children sit down and are strapped in. Now, they are strapped in with a belt that will go over the top of their thighs that has spikes within. Now, the pits themselves are filled with napalm jelly. There is a 5-minute timer, and after the 5 minutes, a spray of flames will continuously shoot out. So, when the children are seesawing, if they're dipped in the napalm, when the 5 minutes are up, they are set ablaze. Now, both children could survive this if they just did a little equilibrium and chilled the fuck out. Wouldn't be stabbed with the spikes, they wouldn't have the napalm on them, and they of course wouldn't be set on fire. Next is the swing. So underneath this pit, there are rapid explosions happening that are shaking the structure. One side of the swing is unrusted and unstable, where the other side is pristine. The structure holding it up is, of course, secure as well. All a child would really have to do to survive this would be to grip on to the good chain, make sure their feet are placed on the connecting sector, and then they could just swing themselves to safety. However, if they allow the explosions to continuously weaken this and they just sit there, they will fall in and be exploded in the abyss. I don't remember what these things are technically called, but I remember playing on them a lot as a kid. Essentially, it's the dome with the bars, and they have like the connecting spots, you know. Anyway, the child just has to make it to the top to the safety platform. Challenge is there's two types of connecting dots. Ones that will give an unpleasant shock, and ones that are landmines. I should say the shock is equivalent to like when you rub your feet across the carpet and then like zap somebody. The child would just have to withstand some unpleasant shocks and be able to make it up to the safety platform. Next, we have kind of like a hopscotch thing. I don't know how many of you went to the playground and you would see like the little balancing stool looking things in the ground. This one requires the people on the outside to help you get through it. So the other children observing can tell the child on this platform that, hey, that one's a good one and that one's a bad one. Now, it's only in the doubles where one is bad and one is good. Obviously, if you step on a bad one, you fall into the abyss and die. This one is also pretty evil. So it's kind of like the old little rocky joints on the springs. I never know what they were actually called. Now, all the child has to do is rock it over to the edge and get off. But if there's too much weight on the front or the head, it will bend really far forward or really far backward. However, the deterrent to the child just sitting their ass down and wiggling it is the fact that it has a spiked seat. This one I think is probably the most blatant in terms of the themes that I have in mind for this story. This is one of those like weird bar things you would see where like children would just like, you know, climb up, do gymnastics and that type of thing. Once the child is on the first rung, the floor opens up and a soundproof dome is placed over. Inside the dome, there are speakers blaring bomb sirens. The child has to climb all the way to the top of the structure. There'd be more rungs, but this is just a rough sketch. And at the top, there is a button to turn off the sirens and then bring back the floor. Like I finally end with just Charlie and Sally. The last of the traps looks like a play place, and it has two entrances. But this is kind of what the entrance would look like for the kids themselves for the final trap, which is the play structure. It's semi-modeled after McDonald's play places, but essentially they are mirrored flipped. Each of their parents are then given a map to help them navigate the play structure and to not fall into any of its booby traps. Agnes gives Charlie and Sally earpieces and says, what happens next depends on your parents. Up in the observation window, Charlie's mother and Sally's father are both not doing well. One of the henchmen turns on a little TV in the room, and it's a recording of Agnes explaining the final game to the parents. Should their child make it out alive, the parent will be killed. However, if the parent dies, the child will be set free, will be given a lump sum of cash, and will be placed in a very good home. Agnes says that this all depends on you, and both parents are handed a map to safely guide their children out of the play structure. Charlie hears his mother's voice for the first time since all of this started. Both of them are crying and hysterical. Sally is also hearing from her father. At first, Charlie's mother and Sally's father are both guiding the children to the correct place, away from the dangerous parts of the play structure. Charlie's mother notices that Sally's father begins to deviate. They have the same map, except they're mirror flipped. Thankfully, Sally is able to catch herself before she is, killed within the play structure and kind of scolds her dad, like, why did you send me over there? He gets back on track, but then tries to do it again, and at this point, Charlie's mother begins screaming at him. She fights for the walkie-talkie, leaving both the kids in the dark about what they're supposed to do. Agnes's guards are not intervening in this. Eventually, Charlie's mother is able to subdue Sally's father by smashing his head in with the TV, a la Scream. He then guides both Sally and Charlie safely out of the structure. Agnes is moved by this, and as a last act of kindness, allows Charlie to say goodbye to his mother. Of course, Charlie's mother has to ask the titular why, which Agnes goes into the details about the horrors of war and especially what happened to the children. How some of her friends and herself were sold to make ends meet, or some were turned into meat because of the starvation. She talks about how all the innocence was stripped and ripped away from them, and how envious she is of this new generation's ability to be children. Charlie's mother then asks her what does she think doing any of this would solve, to which she just responds with, "It didn't solve anything. It just made me feel better." Charlie's mother then wrestles the gun off of a henchman and shoots Agnes in the chest. She then shoots the henchman and gets the fuck out of Dodge with the kid. She steals a car, and they drive off from the compound and make their way home. Sally now lives with Charlie and his mother, and they're still in the same house in the same town. One night they turn on the TV to find Agnes being interviewed again. She talks about how the winner of her contest changed her perspective on the world. There's a knock at the door, and Charlie answers it to find a present on his front doorstep. It is 2 new consoles, as well as the cash prize. The news then changes to the disappearances of several wealthy families all involved with weapons manufacturing. The end.